Walker Skating Rink Fund Budget. Item 11, LM 2025-0144. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Town Green Special Services District, fiscal year 2025-2026. 12, LM 2025-0145. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Whaley Avenue Special Services District, fiscal year 2025-2026. 13, LM 2025-0146. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Chapel West Special Services District, fiscal year 2025-2026. 14, LM 2025-0147. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Grand Avenue Special Services District, fiscal year 2025-2026. These items are on file and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services, 165 Church Street. Per order, the Honorable Adam Marchand, Chair. Attest Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance at 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY. Public comment/testimony may also be submitted via email to public-testimony@newhavenct.gov for 2:00 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Meeting can be viewed on Board of Alders YouTube page. Let's now introduce ourselves, starting to my right.
Yvette Hamilton, Ward 24.
Rosa Barros Santana, Ward 13.
Sal DiColo, Ward 18.
Adam Marchand, Alder of the 25th Ward, Chair of the Committee.
Sal Punzo, Ward 17.
Anna Festa, Ward 10.
Taisha Walker-Myers, Ward 23.
I would also like to recognize our colleague, Alder Redenti, who has joined us. Okay, so that was, without a doubt, some of the most thrilling reading you've ever heard. It's a long agenda, but it really breaks down into 4 parts. And let me explain what those 4 parts are, at least the way I've put it together. One of those parts, if we start at the bottom of the list, is the 4 special services districts. That's one part. The next part, moving in reverse order again, are those enterprise fund budgets, right? That's 4 items. We're going to deal with those 8 items from the jump in this meeting. I don't anticipate a huge amount of discussion, and so we'll deal with those early on in the meeting. Then we will proceed to the core of our meeting, which is items 1 and 2. Appropriating ordinances 1 and 2, which deal with the expenditure and revenue sides of the general fund budget. I anticipate that to be where most of our discussion this evening will take place. We will then conclude our meeting by deliberating on items 3 through 6, the other items associated with our annual budget, the capital, tax anticipation notes, permits and fees, and that ARPA reallocation, which is tied into our general fund budget for next fiscal year. So that's how we will proceed. We'll dispense with some of those later items on the agenda first to get them done with, and then we'll dive into items 1 and 2, where I anticipate most of our discussion this evening will happen. That is the general game plan. I want to orient my colleagues to the material that's in front of you, just to make sure we're all clear what we have. The stapled packet was prepared by our fiscal analyst, Don Hayden. It includes our agenda and the actual items as submitted to this body and to the Board of Alders. Right? So those are the resolutions associated with all those ordinance amendments and the resolutions associated with those orders. Right? We have 14 items. That means there are 14 resolutions dealing with, 1 for each of those items. Right? So that is important information to have for reference. But tonight, we're probably gonna live more in the second packet that I prepared for you. If you look at it, it's a set of papers that are kind of enclosed by a large 11 by 17 sheet of paper. People who've been on finance before, when I've run it, have been burdened with large format spreadsheets. This is one of them. This spreadsheet contains the large format paper contains the expenditure corrections that our city staff recommended and that our Director of Management and Budget discussed with us on Monday's meeting, right? I made it on a bigger sheet of paper so we have some opportunity to be able to read all the numbers, but we're not going to go through this data tonight because it's been described to us already. But for the record, when we talk about the corrections to the expenditure side, these are those corrections. You will also find in that packet a set of numbered pages, 1 through 6, front and back. In the bottom right-hand corner, it says revenue 1, revenue 2, revenue 3, revenue 4. Okay? Those are 6 pages of a document that give the revenue corrections, which are summarized in kind of categories in page 6 of that document, showing the full impact of all those revenue changes, right? So when we refer to the technical changes recommended by staff for the general fund budget, it is this large 8.5 by 11 for the expenditures and this packet of 6 11 by 8.5 papers, right? Okay. Now on the large format page, you'll see the summary, which gives the total impact, right? And that's not a whole lot of numbers, it's 3 numbers. Right. So that shows us that the net impact of making all these changes is $1.77 million money in the budget that hasn't been budgeted, that's available for some other use or whatever, okay? There's one more sheet of paper in that packet, which is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper landscape. And that is the full list of all the new fees that are proposed in the mayor's proposed budget. Colleagues might recall that there was some confusion in some of the budget workshops because there seemed to be a disconnect between the information we had about new permits and fees and what the department had said. Well, that was just some scrivener's errors. There are very few changes in that portion of the budget. In fact, the only ones that are before us are these. So when it comes time to talk about permits and fees, we're going to need to amend what's that institution to make sure that this is what's actually in front of us, okay? So before we begin, let me just ask if there's any questions from colleagues about the information that's in front of us. Any questions about the information that's in front of us? Lots of paper. Well, if you do have a question later on, I have no doubt that you'll ask it. Before we begin, let me just recognize our colleague Alder Sabin, who has joined us. And also Alder Carmen Rodriguez, who has joined us. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so having made all those PSAs, I don't see a huge body of audience members here, mostly city staff, but I'll just make the point that if you have a cell phone or other device that makes noises, please put it on silent. If you need to have a conversation with somebody, take it out in the hallway so that we can proceed without interruptions. We appreciate it. There will be no public testimony this evening, and the only people who will be invited to this table are the folks who are already here and any other committee members who might show up. So we are not having any further workshops or public testimony. These are just deliberations. Having said that, shall we begin? Alder DeCola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move items 7, 8, and 9. And
Second.
10. Did I see 10?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Second.
A motion's been made, moving items 7, 8, 9, and 10. Discussion of the motion. Alder DeCola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These items are straightforward. These are our enterprise funds, and it's this act and procedure that we must do every year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Further discussion of the enterprise fund budgets for next fiscal year. I will just note for the record that the East Rock Communications Tower is on a glide path towards obsolescence, but it isn't quite there yet. Any further discussion of these items? Alder Festa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, the East Rock Tower is also very important for our first responders.
Indeed. And by my comment that it's on a glide path towards obsolescence, I was not talking about the tower, I was talking about the enterprise fund. The tower itself is incredibly important, but will likely move over to the general fund sometime soon because we need it. We're just not renting space on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Festa. We don't want to be misunderstood. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of items, a favorable report on items 7, 8, 9, 10, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The item carries to move forward favorably. Alder Nicole.
Mr. Chair, I move item 11, 12, 13, and 14 favorable.
Second.
The items have been moved in second. Discussion of these items. Alder Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During our meetings, each individual came from the districts. All their constituents that are involved, the businesses, all agreed to everything that's being done. So I think this is, again, a format that we must do every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Nicole. Further discussion of these 4 items, the special services district budgets. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. It will move forward favorably. Thank you, Alder Nicole. Alder Nicole.
Mr. Chair, I move item 1 and 2.
Second.
Items 1 and 2 have been moved and seconded. These are appropriating ordinance 1 and appropriating ordinance 2, the general fund budget. Do I have a motion to amend items 1 and 2 to move a technical amendment that adopts all the recommended changes that are brought forward by our city staff?
Mr. Chair, I move the item.
Second.
The technical amendment has been moved and seconded. Discussion. So just referencing the material that we've already discussed, what we heard from our Director of Management and Budget on Monday is that there were some errors, some having to do with formulas that were not operating correctly in the spreadsheet, positions that were not meant to be proposed that were still in the budget that need to be removed. Some assumptions around revenue that need to be updated and changed based on those positions being removed. And as you can see from the spreadsheet, it's quite a few changes. And the net impact of those changes is the expenditures decrease $3,195,439. And the revenues decrease $1,425,000. That means that should this technical amendment pass, there will be a surplus of $1,770,439. So that's just explaining what it is. Discussion of the technical amendment. Discussion of the technical amendment. Making these corrections. Seeing none, all in favor of this amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Do I have an amendment making changes to the budget to deal with the $1,770,439 surplus?
I move the item.
Second.
There's a motion that made to deal with that $1.7 million surplus. It's been moved and seconded. There's 2 things that are proposed as part of this amendment. The first is $1,425,000 would be moved to expenditure reserve. That's $1,425,000 moved to expenditure reserve. The remaining $345,439 would go into a organizational subsidy for the Connecticut Food Assistance Network. Any discussion of the motion to amend? Alder Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of these moves. I think it's a wise thing that we take care of CFAN and put the rest of the money in reserve due to the unpredictable of our president right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Nicole. Further discussion, Alder Walker-Mines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am too in favor of this motion. I think it's very responsible. I think we heard a lot from the members asking for support for CFAN. And we know a lot of our constituents and beyond really utilize the service. So I think this amendment is appropriate.
Thank you, Alder Walker-Mines. Further discussion from colleagues on this amendment. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair Marchand. I'm also in support of the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the item. We heard from Connecticut CFAN, and as my colleague said, we don't know the state of the federal government and their expenditures at this point. And food aid is important. We have food insecurity in the city, and it's a moral obligation not only for us, but it's also part of the Beatitudes and feeding the poor and clothing, feeding the hungry, taking care of our poor,
Yes.
etc. I don't need to go through them. You know, Google them. And again, it's our responsibility. Regarding, just in general, I just want to make this statement since this is our discussion. The oversight on the technical amendment of the total of 1.770439 could have actually gone towards the reduction of our mill rate. So that mistake is affecting somewhat of our residents, which is, somewhat disappointing. And I get mistakes are made, and math is not my forte, but I just wanted to bring that point up because when I looked at this worksheet in the beginning, my thought was, well, we need to decrease the mill. That's what we need to do with this money. But
Alder Festa, are you supporting the amendment as proposed?
I said that at the very beginning,
Okay.
yes, but this is discussion and I just wanted to make
Well,
sure.
we will discuss the item as amended. So
Okay.
if you want to say more about mill rate, you can do that.
Sure thing. I just wanted.
Yep, you've given a preview of what you may likely say again later. But let's keep the discussion to the
Yes,
amendment.
I
as
support
proposed.
the amendment as
Okay,
proposed.
thank you, Alder Festa. I would like to recognize our colleague Alder Morrison, who has joined us. Further discussion of the amendment to deal with the $1.77 million in surplus by moving $1.425 million into expenditure reserve and $345,439 into an organizational subsidy for Connecticut Food Assistance Network. Further discussion on that. Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment as moved, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries. So what this has done, before I open the floor to further amendments, is that we have implemented a technical amendment to make the corrections and changes that have been discovered by our city staff. It's right and proper for us to do that. And then it has dealt with the resulting surplus of 1.77 million by putting it in those two different amounts. So now the floor is open for further proposed amendments to the budget, items 1 and 2. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have general fund line item amendment with positions.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I am proposing that we remove 3 positions from the proposed mayor's.
Let me interrupt you and just ask you, please, first to say, I would like to move an amendment to item
Oh,
1
did I
and 2.
not say that? Sorry.
Yeah.
I would like to move an amendment to item number
1 and 2.
and 2, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please describe that amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Again, the expenditure decreases would be to remove 3 positions, the Chief Data Officer, Deputy Controller, and the Account 1 position with the savings of $298,959, with those savings being applied toward any I would say contractual services. So for example, tree trimming, street paving, stump removal, basically city services. I feel that the mill is going up. Our residents deserve something tangible where we can apply these funds to those line items, if that makes any sense. So if we have to pick a department or if we have to choose a line item, it could go under other contractual services, either in engineering or transportation, traffic and parking or parks. That's for us to determine, but the savings are $298,959 to be used for,
All for that.
yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for describing it. Discussion of the motion, which would eliminate 3 proposed new positions: Chief Data Officer for $90,000, Deputy Controller for $132,000, and Accountant 1 for $76,959, and to take the resulting savings of $298,959 and commit it all towards some budget line that we would need to specify before the evening is over that supports operations like tree trimming, stump grinding, sidewalks, those kinds of things. Is that right, Alder Festa?
Yes, and actually, may I go back to my amendment?
Do you want to further clarify your amendment?
Yes,
What
I'm
else?
sorry. I made so many corrections today based on all the new information that I received last Monday that I had to make corrections to my amendments. I would actually, part of that 298, $50,000 to go towards, and I don't know if anyone else has this, I'm not, yeah.
Go ahead and say it.
$50,000 towards Haven's Harvest, and then the $248,959 to go towards what I initially mentioned as far as services, constituent services.
Thank you, Alder Festa. So
My apologies.
just to be clear, of the 298, 50 goes to Haven's Harvest, and the other 248 and change goes to other contractual services that support those kinds of operations.
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion of this amendment, Alder Ferraris again.
I agree as well. The mill rate is going up. The hiring is not being done to New Haven residents. And I believe that Haven Harvest deserves this money. So I agree with Alder Festa.
Thank you, Alder Ferraris Santana. Further discussion of this motion. Alder Walker-Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in support of this because I think that we always hear from constituents like tree trimming, especially the stumps getting up and everything like that, and this is a direct effect on them. So I think that is appropriate. And we also heard that Haven Harvest was interested in getting some funds, and they also support a lot of our different constituencies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alder Dakota. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of this too. I just want some more clarity of what branches of some of this block money is going to. That's all I need before I really vote on this. That's where we're going to break it down to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Dakota. And the queue is open. Let me just make a remark and then I'll come back to the queue, which is typically we like to have amendments that are very precise and specific. However, I want to show some allowance for colleagues given that we received some of this information quite recently. We had a presentation on Monday that listed one figure for what that surplus would be, and then we heard it change, further clarified late on Tuesday, and then we got more information today. So it's been a little bit harder for colleagues to figure out what to amend because there was more opportunity to make amendments late breaking in the process, which is fine. So I think what we would need to do before we go to the second reading is to make sure that we pin down what the actual budget lines are, unless we want to take a 5-minute recess and try to pin it down now, because we're not going to invite people to the table because I'm not doing that tonight. But I think it's probably what we need to do tonight, given the late breaking nature of some of these monetary adjustments to the figures, is let's just describe it as best we can tonight to make sure we're all in agreement with the intent. And then I will work with staff to make sure that it's put into proper format with the exact budget lines for which contractual service item in which departmental line should it go, maybe more than one. I may decide that we need to do an amendment by substitution at the second reading just to make sure the record is complete about what we're doing. But I just want to make sure that folks understand what the intent is from the maker of this amendment. Any questions for the maker of the amendment about her intent?
No question.
Everybody's fine. Okay, so further discussion then of this. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair Marchand. I'm also in support of the item. Havens Harvest needs that money, but more importantly, the balance of that funding, which is gonna be $248,000, could go towards sidewalk, tree trimming, sidewalk repair, and definitely I have some stump in front of my house that needs to be dug up too. So, yeah, we could address all those things.
In your neighborhood, it would not be a good idea to fix stumps in front of Alder's houses.
No, well,
My sidewalk is the worst in my ward, and I'm gonna pay for it.
Yeah, but yes,
I take your
thank
lead.
you so much.
Yes, all of our neighborhoods have plenty of trees needing trimming and sidewalks needing fixing and stumps needing removal. Further discussion of this amendment, Alder Punzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also in favor of the $50,000. And also, I also agree with you that the discussion with the specific departments and to discuss with them exactly where that money should be spent is very, very important. To make sure that it really goes towards stumps, trees, sidewalks, what have you, curbing, and I'm in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Punzo. Further discussion of this amendment from Alder Festa. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. The amendment will be made and we'll clarify it going to the second reading. Further amendments to items 1 and 2, our general fund budget. Further amendments. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would this be the appropriate time for a policy amendment?
Yes, it would be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make an amendment, a policy amendment.
Second. Describe it, please.
It is regarding the $5 million budgeted for the Board of Education. Sorry. Again, this is a policy amendment regarding the $5 million budgeted for the Board of Education. I feel it should be partially or fully sequestered or something until at least the end of the first quarter, which would be the end of September, when the superintendent presents any plans or data within the department with possible elimination of some non-student facing positions as well as school closures.
Thank you, Alder Festa. And just to clarify, you're referring to the $5 million more proposed for next year than what they were allocated this year.
Correct, Mr.
The
Chair.
total amount is $213,262,700.
Whatever's in the mayor's proposed budget, which is the $5 million
Yeah.
for fiscal year
It's
25,
the
26.
delta between this year and next.
Correct, yes.
And your proposal is to sequester that. And that's what your amendment would do?
Yes, should I explain, may I?
Yes, please.
So, Mr. Chair, I just feel like in the past year, we've given the $5 million that was left over from ARPA funds last year that we didn't need to balance our budget and gave it to the Board of Ed. We also voted to transfer $3 million for that just in case money. That's $8 million. I feel like we're just constantly giving money with no explanations in return. And when the superintendent came before us last budget season, our majority leader asked, quite frankly, he was very honest and open as to what her plan was to close schools. And it was mentioned that she was going to work on a plan, and we asked for that plan to be presented. I don't think it's been presented, and I will say that our colleague here on finance, who chairs the education committee so well, has had the Board of Ed before his committee many times, questioning many things. So the opportunity was there for the Board of Ed to present plans, to present data, to present a lot of information that we questioned, or I should say, our majority leader questioned last year towards the superintendent. And they came before us with elimination of teachers, of librarians, of all the essentials that we need for our students.
I'm gonna want you to get to the point of what the amendment actually does about that.
And I'm getting there.
Well, you need to get there now.
Well, I just want to lay out the plan for my colleagues as well, so they understand what led me to this
Okay. So
thinking, because
what is it?
Unfortunately, it's a year's worth of information that we still haven't gotten, basically. So we need to do something. We need to do something to either, if it's not sequester, then maybe we need to do a line item to say, hey, here's $5 million in our general fund budget. Let's earmark it for the Board of Ed. And then once this plan is presented from the superintendent, we could transfer those funds to them. I mean, they're not going to need it in the first quarter of the year anyway. They're going to have funding.
So let me just interrupt you for a moment. Just so that we're all clear on what you're proposing. Your amendment would sequester 5 million of the 213 plus million. And if it's sequestered, mechanically what that means is before the Board of Ed could actually use it, they would have to have legislation from the Board of Alders releasing it from sequester, right? And and I suspect that the president would refer that to the Finance Committee. But you never know. Could be education, could be a joint committee, but it comes to the Board of Alders to request to release money that's been sequestered. And it's a mechanism to make the requester, which would be the Board of Ed, come before us, give a presentation based on whatever it is we're asking them to see. And then, the request would be, we want the money unreleased, right? So that's what a sequester does. And that's what you're proposing.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes.
All right, so let's hear from colleagues if they have questions or statements they would like to make. I have 2 people so far on the queue, and before I call on them, let me recognize our colleague Alder Furlow who has joined us. So first in the queue is Alder Morrison, and then Alder Farrar Santana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not in support of this sequester process. The reality is I've been on this board for 14 years, and for forever, the Board of Ed has been asking for $20 million. So that budget has just been kicked up the road for a very long time. They need their money. What is holding back $5 million going to do? They come here with a plan. The plan isn't locked in stone. They just look to repurpose a school. That in itself, 1 school, 2 schools to repurpose one and change some of the dynamics to another. That took a very long time. So to hold back money because we want them to come with a plan, I don't think that's gonna help our students at all. And we're about making sure that we put things in place to help our students. And that's why we're voting tonight on this money. And so to vote it and dangle it in their face and say, do what we say do, come back with your plan. I could come up with a plan, doesn't mean I'm gonna actually implement that plan. So I'm not in support at all. If we're gonna give it to them, give it to them, let them do what they need to do with it to help our children. So thank you.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Alder Farrar Santana, and then after that, the queue is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Alder Festa. I do want to sequester the 5 million. We have done it in the past. It has been done. And the reason for it is because the Board of Ed doesn't abide by any sequestering that we do, asking them for information and not providing it. We have schools that are closed. They could sell those properties and get them off the tax rolls and do something with them. instead of paying heat, utilities, and everything else that they're paying for the closed schools. I'm talking about closed schools. So to me, that's a waste of money. If you have schools that are not open and you're paying money on them to just have them sit there and deteriorate more. She has made a plan supposedly in her head that she's talking about, she's been saying for the last 2 weeks on radio and camera and whatever else, news media, that she is reassessing and trying to reshuffle schools and laying off front-facing teachers. That's a sad day when you're laying off front-facing teachers, which they should be doing is doing their office staff people. So that is why I support the sequestering. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Farrar Santana. Alder Walker Myers, followed by Alder Furlow.
Thank you.
And I assume the maker would want to get back on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not in support of this questioning the $5 million because the Board of Ed is going to receive 200 plus anyway, right? So when you hold the 5 million, it does, we can say you have to come to us with a plan that does not include forward-facing jobs and all of that stuff. But ultimately, the one that makes the decision on whatever plan the superintendent actually carries through is the board over there at the Board of Ed, not the Board of Alders. The only thing we can do, and we have done it in the past, is hold the money. But they're not going to need that in the beginning going to September because they're going to have this whole other pot of money. I think the intent of it is great because, look, nobody wants teachers laid off. I don't think anybody, whether you're for it or against it, want teachers and people laid off. We want our children to be the first priority. But as a board and as a chair of a committee, you can always call them. We have more power than what we use sometimes. But our power is not actually in whether they're going to be laying off teachers or not. That's for the Board of Education. I mean, I think there's some other things that we probably can do to get our point across to them about that, but I don't think this mechanism is going to actually produce exactly what we're looking for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Walker Myers. Next is Alder Furlow, followed by Alder Petrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for being late. I'm not able to support this. We talked, and I had a long time to think about it. So there's a couple of things that I'm concerned about. First of all, let me just address that the reason why the heat is on in schools and the electricity is because all the schools have an alarm system. It's necessary. We need the electricity in the schools in order for the alarms to go off if somebody breaks in. The heat is on in schools because the pipes will break if they weren't. So the utilities are necessary. I share, Mr. Chair, the aggravation with the Board of Ed. It's just, it is so aggravating because we're looking at our children and want the best for them. And I was trying to think of what can we possibly do outside of sequestering funds. I haven't come up with a solution, but I'm concerned about the legality of holding money that we vote to give them and then saying, you're not going to get it. Because if they don't have a plan or we don't like the plan, then what do we do? And as the fiscal agents of the city, it's going to be our responsibility at the end of the fiscal year to fill the gap anyway. And so I think, in all due respect, Mr. Chair, I think that we may just want to get our heads together and think of what else we might be able to do. I agree with the spirit of how this is presented. I'm using Just for Men right now because my hair is turning gray. Thinking about all of what's going on with our children, with the increase in crime, with the lack of programs, we have to do something. And I know we've done this in the past, but I don't know whether we really have the right to do it. And sometimes the right to do something is, we don't find out whether we have that ability until we go to court, right? But that's my only concern. I think we can argue both ways that as a financial authority of the city, we can do it, but we know at the end, we're gonna give it to them. And so I think we need something that's a little bit more stronger. And I'm willing to have that conversation and figure out what we need to do to let the Board of Ed know that we expect better. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. Alder Festa's next, and then Alder Punzo.
I'll yield to Alder Punzo if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, and that way I'll address all of my colleagues.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like my colleague mentioned, the superintendent and her team has been before us quite often, almost every meeting. And the thing I'm concerned about is if we sequester this money, obviously we're hearing that the superintendent has to make cuts. Now, the thing that concerns me is that if teachers are involved in this cut, and she's counting on the $5 million because we voted on it, I'm afraid we're going to lose teachers. Because if they get notice that they're going to be either replaced or get a pink slip or what have you, I'm just concerned that we might lose some people that we shouldn't be losing. We can't afford to lose anyone. So I'm actually not in favor of sequestering this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Punzo. Any other colleague wishing to speak on this before our proponent, our maker, does? Alder DeCole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not in favor of this. There's got to be a better way to deal with our school system. Since I've been on the board for 14 years, our buildings are deteriorating, and the children come first, so the buildings are becoming second. And we're at a point now that our buildings can't be second, and with black mold and other issues, and it's a conversation that we all have to sit down and see what is the right way to help our schools, because the school system and with where the economy is going, every year there's going to be a raise in the Board of Ed, what they need. It's not going to stop. So I'm not in favor of this, and I think we just need to talk more about it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Any further comment? Alder Farasenta?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Alder Furlow, for enlightening me on the fact that the reason why we pay the utilities is because they need to be open for other reasons. I was not aware of that, and I appreciate you allowing me that information. But the matter is that we need to do something with those schools, and rather than pay utilities that are not being used for any other reason. And so I think there's a better, and I agree now that I believe there's a better way to do this. I'm hoping we could come up with a plan, because I don't want to see children not being taught, and I don't want to see teachers lose their jobs either. But I want to do something to make them understand that we need to work together to accomplish the same goal.
Thank you, Alder Ferraro Santana. Last word, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to try and address everyone's concerns who spoke because they're legitimate. And the last thing I want to do is sequester $5 million. But we need to do something. This is $5 million that they don't have yet. This board and we will vote on that, in a couple weeks. This is money that they don't currently have. And the purpose is, it's only $5 million when you look at the overall number of the Board of Ed. And yes, the Board of Ed and that committee has a responsibility to our kids, our teachers, and the staffing, and making decisions on the Board of Ed budget. But with that being said, I just feel like we need to do something, because personally, we can have in front of committees, but our colleague who chairs the Education Committee had them in front of that committee multiple times, and what has been produced? No report, nothing. That was promised last year. We've gone, 2 years now with the super, and we have students who still can't read, our roofs falling in, we've mold problems, all of that. Yes, that's being addressed because we are pushing for that to be addressed, because we here, this board, is putting funds in the capital budget to address the schools falling apart. But where are their deliverables? Where's the superintendent with her deliverables? What are they doing? What is happening there? And yes, we can address these questions, but we get the same answers.
Alder Festa, I don't think you need to organize your colleagues on the idea that something needs to change, and we'd love to get that message across. What I specifically want you to address, because we're not just going to win an amendment by volume of remarks, is why would the sequester be effective, and why should colleagues agree that that's a worthwhile thing for us to do? Not whether we should do something, because that's not what's before us. What's before us is you propose the sequester. Why would that be effective? Why would that help move things in a positive direction?
Mr. Chair, that was going to be my next bullet, but I wanted to make sure my colleagues who made comments, I addressed their concerns as leading up to. Why? Because it creates transparency, because it'll look on how they can better support our students, our staff, the teachers. What is the outcome of these dollars? What is the plan that's gonna cut your budget? Because in the end, it's the state and the city that always bails them out. The state tries to come through. We bail them out with a balance, but it's basically to create transparency as to what that report will show and how they're going to support our students, how they're going to support our teachers, and the overall educational system of our city. I wrote as many notes as I could, but that's pretty much, I'm all over the place.
Okay.
How I think.
All right.
I take them, or I take my notebook around and, but we need more transparency, Mr. Chair. And if there's another way, sequestering is not the answer, and the answer is to develop a line item that will, earmark that 5 million to the Board of Ed. That might be simpler, and then we transfer it. Maybe that's what we have to do, but we need to do something to give it teeth. That's all. And yes, 5 million doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it is. But it is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa. Alder Hamilton, did you want to say something else?
Yes, thank you, Chair Marchand. Sequestering the money, in my opinion, is not the way to go. I agree that we definitely need to have more, hear more from the Board of Ed, but sequestering the money is not gonna help the situation. There has to be another option, more conversation and working together with the Board of Education to come up with a full plan.
Thank you, Alder Hamilton. So the motion before us is to sequester $5 million of the $213 million allocation, general fund allocation to the Board of Education. It's been moved and seconded and discussed. Let's now take a vote. All in favor of this amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the amendment, please say nay.
Nay.
The nays have it, the motion fails. Further amendments of the general fund budget, items 1 and 2. Further amendments of items 1 and 2. Just to recap, especially for folks who just got here, we did our technical amendment to accomplish the corrections that were recommended by staff. Then Alder DeCola moved an amendment to reallocate the $1.77 million of surplus, $1.4 million to expenditure reserve, and $345,000 and change to Connecticut Food Assistance Network. Alder, that motion passed. Alder Festa moved an amendment to remove 3 positions, which yielded $298,000 in savings. Her motion moved 50,000 of those savings to Havens Harvest, the organizational subsidy for Havens Harvest, the food recovery organization, and the remaining 248,000 went to other contractual lines related to operations such as tree trimming, stump grinding, and street sidewalks. That passed. So that's how that's what is before us right now. Any further amendments for the general fund budget? So are there now statements in support or in opposition to the budget as amended? Looking for colleagues, please, to say a few things. Alder DeCola, then Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of these moves. I think we've done some good movements on that benefits our residents and the Board of Ed and everybody. So I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Alder Furlow. And then the queue's open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also in favor of these amendments. Each year, our budget becomes harder and harder to work through, and although this year we were not able to decrease the proposed mill rate increase, I think that was, though it's hard, but I think it is a wise decision. As we're looking forward to the future, we don't want to have to do a decrease this year and then possibly double increase next year, depending on funding. I think that what we did in eliminating positions and putting money into services that help our people, as well as the contractual services that are for our constituents, as tree trimming and the stump removal and things that we're doing. I think that it's showing that we are concerned about maintaining city services, helping those that are needy, and also keeping in mind that it is our responsibility to keep a tight hold of spending. And I think that this budget is doing that. And so once again, I support these amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. Next would be Alder Farrar Santana, and then Alder Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support these changes that have been made. I believe that moving the money that was suggested by Alder Vesta, the 298 and 50,000 gave in harvest and the balance going to contractual services is a wonderful idea. And so I am totally in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Farrar Santana. And just a quick comment, which is that the amendments have passed, and you're welcome to speak on them, but we're talking about the item as amended.
Okay.
So that includes the amendments, but also includes everything else. So colleagues are also invited to talk about the picture overall and not just the amendments that we voted. So the item as amended, Alder Morrison.
Yes, I just want to concur with my colleague from the 27th Ward. I think that the changes that we've made, the budget overall really speaks to supporting our constituents, even though things are tight. We're constantly, we provide services. That's what we do here in New Haven. And we're constantly moving the pieces of the chessboard around to make sure that the needs of everyone is fulfilled. We don't have enough money to give everyone everything, but for us to be so meticulous in making sure that everyone got just a little bit, I think that that's the way of life. I'm glad that, you know, in the amendment that Alder Vesta brought forward, that we're going to be able to help the food people, because a lot of people, I don't care how much money you make, you're going to need food at some point or some way. I know that you said not the little things, but the overall budget, I think it's really going to be a help. Yes, there is a slight increase in the mill rate, but the increase isn't as bad as it could be. And so I'm glad that this team was able to come up with a good plan and working with the mayor's office. So thank you.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Further comments from colleagues on the items as amended, Alder Vesta, and then Alder Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm in support of the amendment, and what we've been discussing is important because, look, do we agree with everything? No, and we just saw that, right? But we can have a conversation, we can discuss it. And I think we're all in the same mindset in the sense that, you know, Board of Ed does need to do something. And we have so little and yet so much say that it becomes incredibly difficult to decide what is right because there's so many faces involved. It's our kids, it's our teachers, it's the parents, it's anyone associated with our Board of Education. And, you know, I'm the proud mom of 3 kids going through the New Haven Public School System that received a lot of support from our teachers. And I sound emotional because my oldest just graduated from UConn. And, you know, he did extremely well because of the base that he had here in New Haven and our teachers and our Board of Ed. You know, with that being said, they also have a responsibility to report back to those people, which is the public, the residents, the teachers, and to all of us. I'll stop there with the Board of Ed. You know, CFAN, we had them here before us in the public hearings. I mentioned before, you know, we need to feed the hungry, and no one should go without nourishment. It's unfortunately, it's fuel for our bodies, like we fuel our cars and we fuel our homes, and you know, we have to fuel our bodies too. And I hope that I know that it's never enough money. It's never enough money for anything really, but hopefully this little gesture goes a long way and will help them in the meantime until we figure out what's going on in Washington. Look, you know, we saw Monday, we had a report, there were some deficiencies in the budget, which would have been over $1.7 million. And the only thing that I think about when I see that sum is the mill may have gone down just a little bit more, because I think about our senior citizens, I think about our renters, and we always preach about affordable housing and making sure that people can stay in their homes. And every time we increase that mill a little bit, we're kind of affecting our seniors who are on fixed incomes, our renters who are having a tough time affording rents as they stand, you know, and even homeowners, right? You know, we all want to stay in our houses. You know, so when I saw that, it was like, this could have decreased the mill just a little bit. But anyway, I won't harp on that anymore. But, you know, all in all, we have to make compromises as a board, and we may not agree with everything that is in this budget. But if we're looking out for our city services, if we're looking out for our residents, if we're looking out for everybody, then unfortunately difficult decisions have to be made. And sometimes that's a challenge that we face here at this table, because the work is done here for the fiscal implementation of our daily lives in the city of New Haven. So anyway, I support it. I probably said enough. I'm babbling now, and I appreciate the time. Thanks, colleagues, for your patience. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa. The next is Alder Walker-Myers and then Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I support the budget as amended. Look, I think we are doing exactly what we are elected to do when we sit at this table and we go back and forth over where we're going to put money, right? And when we think about the entire picture of feeding the hungry, taking care of the homeless, making sure we have affordable housing, I think sometimes we forget that we are just sticking to the core values that we all voted on when we came in office, right? And I know you might get tired of me saying it, but you know how I feel about that. At the end of the day, we need to continue to make sure that entities like Yale University pay their fair share, because we wouldn't constantly be having this conversation if those things was happening. We're talking about whether we want the Board of Ed to bring us a plan that just lay it plain, I'm going to lay off 5 teachers or whatever it is. At the end of the day, we wouldn't be having this discussion if we were properly funded. But I think even though, you know, with some challenges with doing that, I think we do everything that we can. I think we actually did the best we could do with what was in front of us. We were thinking about next year. That was a good thing. People were like, hey, don't spend all the money because we need to make sure we don't never know what's going to happen. And I think that's, as elected officials, that's what we should do. And that's what we should continue doing. And I'm going to just keep reminding, we're going to always have this conversation until some real transformational things happen in this city. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Walker-Myers. Alder Hamilton and then Alder Punza.
Thank you, Chair Marchand. I'm in support of the budget as amended with all the changes. At the end of the day, it's our responsibility. We are responsible for what happens in our city, our residents, this budget, how we take care of our people. That's our job. So, we have to secure our students, teachers. There's a little bit in this for everybody. It might not be everything that we would like to give to our community, but it's a starting point, right? So we have to work together to make things better. And this is our step. So I'm in support, and I ask colleagues all to support the budget as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Hamilton. Next is Alder Punza, and then Accuso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also in support of these amendments. I think this committee, it's a great committee, looked at the budget in a responsible way, looking at both the residents' education, taking everything into consideration. And that, I think this committee did a great job, and I'm actually proud to be a part of it. I've been a part of education for 49 years. And I do have to say this, that Dr. Nagaran is very responsible, I think. I think she's trying to do a good job. It's very difficult for us looking into the Board of Ed, see the inner workings and all the parts and pieces that go into that. I think she's going to come out of it, and I think she's going to do a good job with support. She has to do what she needs to do. The bottom line is we need a teacher in every classroom, day one, regardless of what move she makes. I believe that's her first priority, and I think she will do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Punza. Further comments from colleagues on the items as amended? Seeing none, I'll just say a couple things myself. First of all, I want to thank the mayor for proposing a budget that was sensible in a variety of ways. It did not do lavish spending. It didn't create a lot of new items because it was cautious, which I think is warranted in this fiscal environment. Caution. I think it's also worth saying a few words about the new investments that are made, including some new positions. We haven't talked about the new positions because we mostly talked about the positions we were removing, but the ones that we're keeping include new positions in the building department, which continues to bring in more revenue than projected. It is a revenue generating part of our city government. There's a lot of building happening in New Haven, which is a positive thing overall, especially for our city budget. We're going to have more inspectors with this budget, in which we are supporting. More parking enforcement officers. Yes, we want parking enforcement in our neighborhoods. We certainly want it downtown because it certainly helps to provide for an orderly downtown, but it provides money in the city revenue. But we also want to have some greater capacity to see parking enforcement in the neighborhoods. Additional parking enforcement personnel and a new supervisor would do that. We want our city engineer to be able to answer phone calls and to keep us up to date about the progress of the myriad projects that we've gotten funding for. The proposed budget, which this committee is supporting, adds 2 new positions, an inspector position and someone whose job is there to deal with timeframes, coordinate schedules, and maximize the capacity of that professional staff to deliver projects and provide information to stakeholders. We want that. We want to support that. So there are a number of things in the mayor's proposed budget that we're keeping because we think they make sense. When we were faced with an interesting opportunity, right, there were some errors in the budget that ended up producing in net $1.77 million surplus. What did we do? We set money aside for possible hard times ahead to make sure we had a cushion in the general fund budget, and we decided to feed people. And when we made further reductions in personnel, we decided, let's fix some more sidewalks and trim some more trees, and let's invest in food recovery, right? Those changes are reflections of our priorities and who we are, and they build upon what I think is a solid budget that the mayor proposed, and I think our amendments improvement. I thank colleagues for their discussion. Any further discussion on the item as amended? Alder Morrison.
I did want to also mention, in regards to our kids in the reading. And I'm so happy that this budget included the continuation of funding towards the reading initiative that we approved a couple of years ago, which has really shown a big improvement in the reading of our kids. And so by seeing something like that, that was in a sense temporary, but now continuing to help our kids throughout the city and getting supports, not just in the schools, but in the communities in various places. I think that's a very, very smart thing. And I'm so glad that the mayor and this committee is all in agreement with that. So I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that piece out.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Morrison. And there's a later item that touches on that, but we've already talked on it, which is good. The last thing I want to say is that on the Board of Ed side, let's just remember that they asked for 18 or $23 million more, and we're giving them 5. There is a pretty tough mandate on the Board of Ed right now to try to figure out how to live within a smaller budget than the superintendent requested, by the order of $15+ million, right? That's significant. Now, I would join in what I've heard from colleagues, which is we would want the superintendent and the Board of Ed to look at any other place for savings other than the libraries and the schoolrooms. We need teachers, we need librarians, we need, and if there needs to be cuts or restraints, we would urge our colleagues in the Board of Ed and their superintendent to look elsewhere. So I would just want to join that chorus. Further discussion on this, on these items? Seeing none. All in favor of the items as amended, items 1 and 2, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. They will move forward favorably as amended. Alder DeCola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move item 3 favorable.
Second.
Item 3 been moved and seconded. We moved both item 1 and 2 together, and we voted on both of them together. Item 3 has been moved and seconded. This is the capital budget, the $60 million every other year capital budget. Any discussion of this item? Any discussion of this item? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For consistency purposes, I'd like to make an amendment to the refunding bonds.
There's a motion to amend. Is there a second? There is no second. The motion fails.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Further discussion of the capital budget. This is the $60 million capital budget we do every other year. I see no amendments. Any discussions, any statements in support or opposition to the $60 million capital fund budget? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say the capital budget is an every 2-year, $30 million per year investment that we make into our city. That's what I look at it as. It's an investment in sidewalks. It's an investment in making sure the city is run properly, with whatever updates and upgrades we need with softwares for running the computer databases, et cetera. And I support the capital budget, and what might come as a surprise to you all, since I'm always looking for cuts, is it might actually be time to increase that capital budget to make more investments in our city that our residents are looking for, to at least, I mean, if we're going to increase it, you know, we have time to think about that, at least with the rate of inflation. That's the only point I want to make, because we're always looking to help our residents in various ways, and if we can't help them by decreasing the mill, then maybe we can help them through services to our city. And just like us at home, sometimes we have to take loans out for whatever reason, you know, student loans, refinancing for whatever reason, for investments in, you know, that we need to make for our houses. I mean, the same thing is what we need to do for the city of New Haven as well. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa. Further comments? I have Alder DeCola, followed by Alder Walker-Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm in favor of this bonding. We do it every 2 years. And just so the residents know, since the airport has been given to Apport, we don't bond for this airport anymore. So the money now is going directly to our community. So I just want people to understand that they used to bond at least 5 million every 2 years and other things. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Alder Walker-Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of the capital budget. I think doing it every 2 years is actually smart because it kind of forces the departments to look further out, and really assess what is the need at that time, because we're not going to be doing it the following year. So since the beginning, I've always thought a 2-year plan was appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Walker-Myers. Further statements in support or in opposition to the capital fund budget? Alder Farr-Santan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I sit on the Capital Budget Committee, and the improvements that they're going to make in the next 2 years are wonderful to our city. It's infrastructure, it's planning on streets, making our streets safer. It's new improvements on other items throughout programming. So I think all of it is wonderful, and it's a great idea to do it 2 times a year. Thank you. Oh, and also, they're going to, I apologize, they're also going to have some remediation in the schools funded from that budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Farr-Santan, for pointing out that investments in our school infrastructure is part of the package of capital investments proposed by this ordinance amendment and supported by this issuance of bonds. Further comments from colleagues on the capital fund budget? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add that we also heard from the New Haven Climate Movement and their concerns with our transportation infrastructure. And I just want to make sure that it's on the record that the capital budget does have over $5 million in there to support our transportation infrastructure for electrification and other initiatives as well, because I know that was something that they were looking for. And I just wanted to make sure it's known that there is, their request was $5 million. There's actually $5 million plus in the capital budget. It's dispersed within different departments, but it's there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa, for that additional information and reminder. Further comments from colleagues on the capital fund budget? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It will move forward favorably. Alder DeCola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move item 4 favorably.
Second.
Item 4 has been moved favorably. Item 4 is the tax anticipation notes, the grant anticipation notes. This is a mechanism that our city uses to make sure it has good cash flow early on in the fiscal year. It's a standard mechanism that a lot of large organizations employ in order to deal with their cash flow and get things going even before the full grant amount comes in. Any questions or statements about this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. It will move forward favorably. Alder DeCola.
Mr. Chair, I move item 5 favorably.
Second.
Item 5 has been moved and seconded. Do I have a motion to amend by substitution?
I move it by.
Second.
Thank you, Alder DeCola. Thank you, colleagues, for the second. Just to remind colleagues of that sheet of paper. This is the entire list of permits, licenses, and fees that are new or changed in the mayor's proposed budget. So the moments of confusion we had earlier in our process where we were talking about increases or changes to permits and fees, and the city staff were looking at us like, no, we didn't propose any. In fact, they didn't propose any. So taking this action would remove all those erroneous increases and insert these, which are the only intended new or changed permit and fees. Any discussion of the amendment by substitution? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The amendment passes. Any discussion of the item as amended? Any discussion of the item as amended? Seeing none, all in support of the favorable recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It will move forward as amended. Alder Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move item 6 favorably.
Second.
Thank you, Alder Nicola and Alder Morrison. Item 6 is the ARPA reallocation, which we had our city staff speak on during our workshop on Monday. And I believe it was explained well at that moment. Any statements in support or in opposition to this particular ARPA reallocation? I'll note for the record that this reallocation supports the continuation of the enhanced math and literacy tutoring initiative that Alder Morrison spoke of earlier. It spoke so well about that we will let that stand. Any further discussion? Nope, you did a great job. Any further discussion, Alder Fester?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder that there was just one thing posed, which is the Saturday Academy versus this math and literacy.
Yes.
So at some point, that information would be helpful as well, just to compare the differences between the two programs.
Thank you, Alder Festa, for that reminder. It is on my list of things to follow up on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions or comments or statements in support or opposition to this item? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. All right, colleagues, so that concludes all of the actions we need to take this evening. Just a couple quick announcements. Of course, everyone knows that the board will take final action on this amended budget on Tuesday, the 27th of May. It's our special budget meeting. It's the day after Memorial Day. Be prepared to hear a long script spoken by either by me or the vice chair or both of us. I will do some follow-up to see about further detail on the amendment that Alder Festa and the amendment that Alder Nicola offered. We want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I also want to let you know that in addition to the point of information that Alder Festa reminded us about, there were other requests for information made during our budget workshop, which Dawn and I have been tracking. I followed up with city staff. Some of those responses came today, and I will forward them to you tonight so you can see them. They include, for example, information about responses, Elm City Compass responses by neighborhood, calls by neighborhood, which was a list of hotels that the city works with to temporarily relocate people when they're in moments of emergency. So some of those, what happened to the Macy's Fund, like we have answers to those questions. They're in my inbox. You will get them later tonight. So those I's are dotted and T's will be crossed. Alder Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any discussion of the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries. We are